The moving truck rumbled away, leaving Ethan and Claire Mitchell standing in the driveway of their new home. A perfectly manicured two-story colonial with a freshly painted white picket fence. The neighborhood, Willow Ridge, was picturesque in an almost eerie way. Identical houses with identical landscaping, flawlessly green lawns, and not a single stray leaf or forgotten toy left out on the sidewalks. The air smelled faintly of chlorine, as though even nature had been sanitized. Claire squeezed Ethan's hand, her fingers cold despite the warm afternoon sun. "It's perfect," she said, but her voice held a note of hesitation. Ethan forced a smile. After the layoffs, the medical bills, and the crushing debt, this was supposed to be their fresh start, a safe place, a place where nothing could go wrong. They didn't notice the curtains twitching in the house across the street. A man in a crisp blue suit appeared on their porch so suddenly that Claire gasped. He hadn't walked up the driveway, he was just there, as if he'd been waiting for them inside their own home. His smile was wide, his teeth too white, his eyes unblinking. "Welcome to Willow Ridge," he boomed, his voice too loud for the quiet street. "I'm Harold Voss, president of your Homeowners Association." Claire relaxed slightly, though Ethan's grip on her hand tightened. "Oh, how nice," she said. "We've never lived in an HOA before." Voss chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling. "You'll find we take exceptional pride in our community." He handed Ethan a thick leather-bound booklet. "These are our covenants, conditions, and restrictions. Our rules ensure harmony." Ethan flipped through the pages, page after page of regulations. Grass must be kept between 2.5 and 3 inches. No exterior paint colors outside the approved palette. No holiday decorations before the 1st of the month, and never more than 6. No wind chimes, no political signs, no unapproved landscaping. Claire frowned. "This seems extensive." Voss's smile never wavered. "Read it thoroughly," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Compliance is essential." Then, just as suddenly as he'd appeared, he was gone. Not walking away, just vanishing around the corner of the house, leaving behind the faint scent of something metallic, like old pennies. Ethan exhaled. That guy was intense. Before Claire could respond, an elderly woman from the next house over hurried toward them, her steps quick and nervous. She wore a faded floral dress and her eyes darted toward the street before she spoke. "You seem like nice people," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Just follow the rules." "Exactly." Ethan frowned. "Is there something we should know about this place?" The woman, Mrs. Langley, according to the peeling nameplate on her mailbox, opened her mouth, then froze. Her gaze snapped to something behind them. When Ethan turned, there was nothing there. When he looked back, she was already retreating, her shoulders hunched. "Just be careful," she muttered before shutting her door with a sharp click. That night, as they unpacked, Claire paused by the window. "Ethan," she said slowly, "do you feel like we're being watched?" He laughed, but it sounded hollow. Probably just the neighbors being nosy. Then Claire screamed. On their porch, just outside the front door, lay a dead crow, its wings splayed. Unnaturally, its beak parted in a silent screech. A single note rested on its chest, the handwriting neat and precise. "Compliance ensures safety." Ethan's blood ran cold. He looked up, and that's when he saw them, figures standing in the dark. In Sioux, every yard, on every porch, perfectly still, watching. And even in the shadows he could see their smiles. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, too bright, too cheerful for the unease settling in Ethan's chest. He sat at the kitchen table, the HOA, rulebook splayed open in front of him like some cursed tome. Claire moved around the kitchen, her motions stiff, her eyes flicking to the window every few seconds. The dead crow was gone, vanished sometime before dawn, leaving only a faint dark stain on the porch boards. "They watch everything," Mrs. Langley had said. Ethan rubbed his temples. "This is insane," he muttered, flipping another page. "Listen. To this, outdoor lighting must be warm white, not exceeding 2700 Kelvin, and must be turned off by 10:30 p.m. to preserve the neighborhood's nocturnal ambiance. What the hell does that even mean? Claire set a mug of coffee in front of him. Maybe it's just thorough. But her voice lacked conviction. A sharp thunk at the front door made them both jump. Ethan crossed the living room in 3 strides and yanked the door open. No one. There. Just a single envelope, crisp and white, wedged into the door frame. He tore it open. Violation notice property, 1421. Willow Ridge Drive infraction. Unapproved exterior modification, mailbox decoration. Correction required. Remove unauthorized sports emblem immediately. Failure to comply will result in further action. Ethan stared at the paper, then at their mailbox. A single sticker, a tiny football logo from his alma mater, peeled slightly at the edges. They're joking, he said. Claire's fingers tightened around his arm. Just take it off. It's a sticker. Ethan. Her voice was low, urgent. The way that man looked at us, take it off. He exhaled sharply but grabbed his keys and scraped the sticker off with a frustrated jerk. The metal beneath was pristine, as if the sticker had never existed. When he turned back toward the house, he froze. Mrs. Langley stood at her kitchen window, staring directly at him, not moving, not blinking, just watching. When she realized he'd noticed, she didn't look away, just slowly raised a finger to her lips in a shushing motion. Then the curtain fell back into place. By afternoon, the violation notice was gone from the counter. Ethan didn't remember throwing it away. Claire was in the backyard, wrestling with an uncooperative patio umbrella, when she suddenly went very still. Ethan, she called, her voice carefully calm. Come here. He stepped outside. The grass was perfectly trimmed, the flower beds immaculate. But something was wrong. The trees. Every single one had a thin, almost invisible wire running from its branches to the ground, like tethers, like leashes. And then he saw the cameras. Tiny, black, nestled in the crooks of branches aimed at their house, their yard, their windows. Claire's breath hitched. We're being watched. A rustling came from the hedges lining their property. Not the wind, something moving through them. Ethan took a step forward, heart pounding. The neighbor's sprinklers kicked on with a sudden hiss, spraying a fine mist over the dividing hedge. The rustling stopped, but as the water hit the leaves, something dripped down onto the pavement below. Not water. Red Claire made a small, choked sound. Ethan grabbed her arm and pulled her inside, locking the door behind them. That night, as they lay in bed, the house creaked in a way old houses do, except this house wasn't old. And the creaking wasn't coming from the walls, it was coming from under the bed. Ethan reached for his phone, the glow of the screen illuminating Claire's wide, terrified eyes, just as something scritched slowly across the hardwood floor beneath them. A whisper, so faint it might have been the house settling. You missed a rule. Ethan woke with a gasp, his body drenched in cold sweat. The room was pitch black, the digital clock on the nightstand dead. No hum of the air conditioner, no sound at all, except for the slow, deliberate scratching beneath the bed. Claire's fingers dug into his arm. Did you hear that? She whispered. The scratching stopped. Silence. Then, a wet, ragged breath from under the mattress. Ethan's pulse roared in his ears. He forced himself to look over the edge of the bed. Nothing. Just darkness. Then the power kicked back on with a click, flooding the room with light. The sheets were tangled around their legs. Max, their golden retriever, was gone from his usual spot at the foot of the bed. Max, Claire called, her voice shaking. No answering click of claws on hardwood. No happy panting. Just silence. They searched the house, turning on every light, calling his name. Nothing. The back door was slightly ajar. Ethan's stomach dropped. They never left the door unlocked. Claire let out a strangled cry and pointed at the kitchen counter. A fresh sheet of paper lay there, crisp and official. Violation notice property, 1421 Willow Ridge Drive. Infraction, unruly vegetation, hedges exceeding 6-inch trim regulation. Correction required, trim immediately to avoid escalation. Ethan crumpled. the paper in his fist. This is bullshit. Claire's hands trembled as she pulled open the blinds. Their backyard was pristine. The hedges, wild and overgrown just hours before, were now perfectly trimmed, but not in neat geometric shapes. In faces, twisted, screaming faces, branches contorted into open mouths and hollow eyes. And beneath the largest one, half buried in the mulch, Max's collar. Claire made a sound like a wounded animal. Ethan grabbed a flashlight and stormed outside, the beam cutting through the pre-dawn gloom. "Max!" he shouted, voice raw. No bark, no movement, just the hedges. As he passed them, the flashlight caught something glistening on the leaves. Not dew, blood. A low growl rumbled from the bushes. Ethan froze. The hedge faces moved. Their wooden lips peeled back into snarls. The branches twitched, reaching. Ethan stumbled back, falling hard on the pavement. The flashlight rolled away, casting jagged shadows as the hedges stretched toward him. A hand clamped onto his shoulder. Ethan nearly screamed. It was Harold Voss, his smile gleaming in the dark. "Good morning, neighbor. I see you've noticed our landscapie." "We have to leave," she whispered. "Now." He nodded, but when they turned toward the front door, the lights flickered. A low hum filled the house like the buzz of 1,000 insects. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting in the wall. Dim glow. Ethan threw open the front door and froze. The street was gone. Where their driveway should have been, there was only an unbroken line of identical houses stretching endlessly in both directions. No cars, no exits. Just Willow Ridge repeating itself into the horizon. Claire made a choked sound. This isn't possible. Behind them, the floorboards creaked. They turned slowly. Harold Voss stood in their living room, though neither had heard him enter. His suit was immaculate, his smile serene. "Leaving so soon?" he asked, tilting his head. "But you haven't even attended your first compliance meeting." Ethan's pulse pounded in his throat. "What did you do to our dog?" Voss sighed, as if disappointed by a child's tantrum. "Rules exist for a reason, Mr. Mitchell. Max was unruly." His smile widened. "But don't worry, he's part of the neighborhood now." A wet crunching sound came from the basement. Claire gagged. Ethan lunged at Voss, but his hands passed straight through the man's chest as if he were made of smoke. Voss chuckled, the sound echoing from every corner of the house. "Tsk, tsk. Violence is a violation, you know." He straightened, his tie. "I'll see you at the meeting. 7 p.m. sharp, compliance is mandatory." Then he was gone, simply not there anymore. The house smelled wrong, like turned earth and spoiled meat. Ethan rummaged through the junk drawer, fingers closing around. "Their spare car keys. We'll try the garage. Maybe we can—" The keys dissolved in his hand, melting into black sludge that dripped between his fingers. Claire grabbed his arm. "The basement," she whispered. "We have to know." The steps groaned under their weight. The air grew thicker, harder, to breathe. At the bottom, a single bare bulb flickered over a scene that made Ethan's stomach lurch. Filing cabinets lined the walls, each drawer labeled with addresses from Willow Ridge. Claire pulled one open with trembling hands. Photographs. Dozens of them, families smiling stiffly, their eyes too wide, their grins too sharp. Each photo had a date stamped in red, and a single word. Compliant Ethan yanked open another drawer. More photos, but these were different. Faces twisted in terror, bodies contorted. The stamps read, Terminateta. Wet cough echoed from the shadows. They spun toward the sound. Something moved in the corner. Something that might have been Max if a dog could be made of twitching branches and glistening meat. Its mouth opened, but what came out wasn't a bark. It was a human scream. Claire stumbled back, knocking over a filing cabinet. Papers exploded into the air, swirling like leaves in a storm. One landed at Ethan's feet, a faded newsletter from 1982, Welcome New Residents. The headline screamed over a photo of Harold Voss looking exactly the same. The walls began to bleed. Upstairs, the front door slammed open. "Mitchell family," a chorus of voices called. "It's time for your meeting." The basement door locked with a definitive click. From the shadows, what remained of Max growled. The hedges outside began to tap against the windows, tapping, scratching, knocking. The knocking became pounding, a rhythmic, pulsing beat that matched Ethan's racing heart. The basement walls breathed, expanding and contracting like living flesh, the filing cabinets rattling as if something inside them was trying to get out. Claire grabbed Ethan's arm, her fingers ice cold. "They're coming through the windows." The hedges outside had grown, their gnarled branches now pressing against the glass, twitching like skeletal fingers. The faces carved into them had changed, no longer screaming, but laughing, their wooden mouths stretched impossibly wide. Ethan scanned the basement desperately. There had to be another way out. His eyes landed on a small, rusted door behind the water heater, a crawl space. "Claire, there!" They scrambled toward it just as the first window shattered upstairs. The sound of snapping branches filled the house, followed by wet, heavy footsteps. Too many footsteps. Ethan yanked the crawl space door open. A rush of stale, metallic air hit them. Inside, the darkness was absolute. Claire hesitated. What if it's worse in there? A floorboard cracked directly above them. Something heavy dragged itself across the ceiling. Ethan didn't answer. He pushed Claire inside and crawled in after her, pulling the door shut just as the basement lights blew out with a pop. The crawl space was tight, their elbows and knees scraping against damp concrete. The air smelled like old blood and something sweetly rotten. A whisper echoed from somewhere ahead. "You're late for the meeting." Ethan's breath hitched. He could feel Claire trembling behind him. Then, light. A sliver of flickering fluorescence seeped through a vent up ahead. Ethan pressed his eye to it, the Willow Ridge Community Center. Rows of folding chairs filled with their neighbors, all sitting perfectly straight, their hands folded in their laps. Their faces were blank, unblinking. At the front of the room stood Harold Voss, his suit pristine, his smile gleaming under the fluorescent lights. "Tonight," he announced, "we welcome our newest members to the fold." The crowd erupted in applause, a sound too sharp, too synchronized, like a recording played. On loop, Ethan recoiled from the vent. "We have to keep moving." The crawl space narrowed, forcing them to belly crawl. The concrete beneath them grew damp, then slick, then warm. Claire gagged. "Oh, God." Ethan's hand plunged into something wet and yielding. He jerked back, but not before his fingers brushed against teeth. Human teeth embedded in the flesh-like floor. The crawl space wasn't concrete. It was alive. A wet squelch echoed from behind them. Ethan turned just in time to see the crawl space door pulse open, revealing a silhouette too tall, too thin, its limbs bending in impossible places. Claire screamed. Ethan shoved forward, his hands slipping in the gore, until suddenly, air. They spilled out into the night, gasping. They were behind the community center, the crawl space exit hidden by overgrown shrubs. Ethan grabbed Claire's hand. "Run!" They sprinted through backyards past houses with darkened windows. But something was wrong. The houses were repeating. 1. Willow Ridge Drive. Again and again. They were running in circles. Claire sobbed. "We can't." A rustling from the hedges. Then laughter. Not from one throat, from dozens. The neighbors emerged from their homes, their movements jerky, their smiles identical. Harold Voss stood at the center of the street, arms spread wide. "Welcome home," he said. The ground beneath Ethan's feet shifted. The pavement softened, then melted, roots surging up to wrap around his ankles. Claire cried out as the same thing happened to her. Voss stepped closer, his polished shoes untouched by the writhing ground. "Don't fight it," he murmured. "Compliance is bliss." Ethan reached for Claire, but the roots were already crawling up his legs, his torso, his throat. The last thing he saw was Claire's face, her expression going slack, her lips curling into a smile. Then the world went dark.